You're watching TelecomTV from HPE Discover 2016 in London. I'm joined now by Paul Gudonis, who is President of Inmarsat Enterprise, and Nigel Upton, who is Director of the Universal IoT Platform at HPE. Nigel, good to see you again. You've been a favourite and a regular on TelecomTV for some years now.
Great to see you too.
And Paul, nice to meet you for the first time. At Discover this week, HPE has made some announcements about IoT and specifically about trying to make the deployment of IoT easier and more economical at scale.
Yeah, so we made some announcements around how we can enable IoT to be more widely deployed at lower price points and much more easily. And some of the problems that were holding IoT back was cost of communications was one thing, and communication accessibility. And the second was just the cost that is required to be able to manage the data coming from lots of different devices. Because as it scales out, all the devices are now lots of different ones. You're measuring water, humidity, noise, whatever it happens to be. So we announced a series of innovations on our Universal IoT platform that solves a lot of these problems, together with partnerships with our colleagues from Inmarsat.
So at HPE Discover this week, Nigel, HPE has been making some announcements about IoT, looking to make the rollout of IoT more economical.
Yeah, so we've made some big announcements today on our Universal IoT platform, and really the struggle that was facing a lot of our partners and a lot of our customers was how do you deploy at scale? It's easy enough to get a little science project going where you buy some devices and connect to an application, but how do you scale that out? Because the world needs lots of devices and they don't all talk the same language, and they certainly don't all communicate over the same protocols. So what we announced was two things. One was the ability to be able to scale out the infrastructure so that IoT communication could be very cheaply done, and this is our mobile virtual network enabler platform. And the second was some significant enhancements on our Universal IoT platform. And this is both to make the data much easier to access, lightweight protocols, because a lot of data comes from devices that have very little power, they're resource constrained. And so we brought these together and we included some Jasper-like functionality, but a little more broad than Jasper so that we can control devices. So Jasper does SIM-based, we do SIM and non-SIM-based. So we brought these features together, and now we're accelerating our partnerships with companies like Inmarsat to be able to get to places that we couldn't previously get to.
Which brings me on to Paul. How does IoT play into Inmarsat's portfolio and its approach to services?
So thinking back on Inmarsat's history, really, we started off providing safety communications at seas for shipping. And if you imagine when you're in that kind of environment where you're providing safety at seas communications, you have to be able to provide a very robust network that operates anywhere in the globe. It has to be 100% reliable and give timely communications to the customer. These are exactly the same requirements as you get in an IoT market. The customer wants to be able to have access to their data, they want to be able to have access to the analytics and see how their operations are running in real time. So really that's, for us, it's an interesting step to take what has been just connectivity in the past and is now more about providing an outcome to a customer, which is where really the partnership with HPE Enterprise drives that outcome delivery.
So what does the partnership cover? What are you doing with HPE?
So we've started with a couple of use cases. We're looking at a plantation at the moment that's based out in Malaysia, which will scale globally over time. And the idea here is that we're using sensors to measure the level of irrigation around a plantation, and that can actually be used to drive efficiencies. So you can tell exactly how you need to adjust that irrigation to drive more crop from the plantation itself. Of course, in order to be able to do that, you need quite a lot of analytics powers, and that's what the Universal IoT platform from HPE Enterprise is delivering. So we're providing the connectivity from very remote locations, and HPE are actually doing the analytics and providing that interface for the customer to make some smart decisions about how to run that operation.
And Nigel, there's a lot of talk at the moment about choice of what wireless standards to use and how the connectivity. Is it a case where we can bundle all these together yet?
Yeah, that's the design principle behind us of any device over any network, because You think back to things like LoRa networks that weren't really around 3 years ago, and suddenly, we have LoRa being used in all sorts of environments for smart agriculture. We partnered with Tata, and they're rolling out the world's largest LoRa network in India. They're going to 1,952 cities and towns to cover 800 million people for IoT services on a LoRa network. So when you consider that wasn't even around 3 years ago, the next 3 years is going to bring continual acceleration of new technology, new types of communication. You better be ready to embrace all of it, otherwise you're going to be in a bit of bother if you're stuck back on just viewing the world as only one type of communication like cellular versus only another like Wi-Fi. It's a blend. It has to be a blend.
And Paul, are you agnostic on the wireless technology that you use? You're a satellite, obviously you're a satellite provider. How do you then integrate cellular and non-cellular wireless technologies with your prime service?
So clearly there are areas where satellite communications is going to be very much a requirement. Areas where there is no terrestrial infrastructure, then that's where satellite comes into its own, whether that's at sea or in the middle of an area where there is no connection, whether that's a rainforest or in Africa or wherever that might end up being. The key though is to accept the fact that satellite isn't always going to be the answer, and so we are ourselves very interested in how we can work with other organisations that can really bring that end-to-end connectivity, whether that is satellite or cellular. And the great thing about HPE Enterprise with a completely agnostic platform is we can mesh all that together and provide basically what is the best outcome for the customer. Even in a built-up area, for example, a cellular network, it makes sense to have a satellite connection as a backup, because we know that cellular networks aren't always robust, can fail, and therefore the ability to switch over to a satellite network is a big value add for a customer.
And Nigel, do you tailor your solutions based on your enterprise and your partners?
The platform is a generic enterprise enablement application platform. What makes it specific is the use cases that get built on top. So with the joint project that we're doing in Malaysia, that's smart agriculture. Fascinating use case with all sorts of issues that are unique to that environment, from wildlife to the challenges of being able to get any sort of connectivity. That's a very different challenge to rolling out a smart city service across, say, Bangalore on traffic. And if you've driven in Bangalore, you'll understand that that has its own unique set of challenges. So each use case tends to be very unique and very vertical, whether it's smart cities or smart or connected cars or smart energy or no matter what it is. However, the concept of having this horizontal platform that can manage all of it and give you consistent data that you can feed all of these applications, because it becomes very obvious they all have to interact with each other. You think about a connected car has to interact with a smart city. It has to drive through, it has to find parking, it has to find EV if you drive a Prius or whatever it happens. It also has to interact with your home, so that when you're getting near your home, your home switches on the heating, whatever it is. So all of these are interacting, they have to interlink, and that's kind of where we provide this horizontal platform for all the vertical use cases.
And how do you hope to take this relationship on further? What's coming up next for the two of you?
Well, what's immediately next, from my perspective, is we have our global partner conference in Paris. HPE Enterprise will be joining us at that show. So the key there is that Inmarsat has a very loyal and well-developed distribution channel that we've worked with for many years. And the key for us is that we can start to develop some of these proof of concepts that deliver much more than connectivity to our end users. And with HPE Enterprise, we can take some of the risk of developing some of these newer use cases in areas like agriculture, and then take them to our distribution partners to bring the scale to be able to launch them globally with other entities. So initially it's about developing some proof of concepts together in Inmarsat and HPE Enterprise, and then really taking them to our community of partners and drive those into a global basis.
Nigel?
Couldn't agree more. Well, we're completely aligned on this, and it's the usual thing of get your use cases built up, get your references sorted out, iron out any kinks there are, and then wash and repeat as many times as you possibly can. And there's lots of different types of verticals, from maritime through to anywhere that's remote. And when you consider that cellular covers what, a third of the globe, that leaves 2/3 ready for all sorts of services that people didn't think was actually available to them.
Great.
That's pretty cool stuff.
Excellent. Well, Nigel and Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us on TelecomTV.
Thank you.
Thank you.